Hello, this is Amy. I'm here with Lara and Michelle as always, and we are Monkey Chatter. Um, Today's topic, I was kind of excited about it, but I think my two co-hosts do not like my choice of books. So, um, we were going to talk about the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. I think it's, yeah, Cal Newport. And then focus. So I think we'll talk a little bit about both, and they go together. Um, but I think not everyone got through the book. So
to read the book. I started reading it. I just had a hard time with the beginning,
yeah,
and then I didn't get past the beginning. So I
and then
still
Laura,
have it.
were you reading it or were you listening to it?
No, I actually was reading it, but it was digital. I didn't buy the book, but I downloaded the book. So it was a physical read, which I do have a little trouble focusing. I do better with audiobooks.
So I tried to do the audio portion, but
Oh.
every time I would listen, I would fall asleep. So I tried to read it, listen to it on the plane. I mean, maybe I got 10 words in. I don't know. But I tried. So I did get, a few chapters in. So I got a little, but wow, that was really a challenging bunch of information. And maybe it's because like I totally get it in theory and truly believe like in what he's talking about. Um and he did give all kinds of examples of like how it works differently for different people. And so I think that actually confused me a little. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of thought I knew. And then he's like, oh, but these people do this and this group did that. And he talked about, Facebook and the open floor plan. And I'm like, okay, well, which is it? Like, do we collaborate or do we lock all these people out? Like, I'm so confused.
Yeah, you
So
got way farther than I did. Because none of that sounds familiar at all.
Lara's like, "How was that introduction?"
it was, yeah. So Amy,
What's the
fill
book
us
about,
in.
Amy?
Yeah.
What's it actually about?
Give us a little
Yeah,
direct.
we it's so the title of it is Deep Work, and it says rules for focused success in a distracted world. So maybe you guys are this.
Look, a squirrel.
Oh.
What? Wait.
And Seth Godin says that Cal Newport is a clear voice in a sea of noise, bringing science and passion in equal measure. But
We
apparently he
love
wasn't
Seth.
super clear for you guys.
I love Seth. Usually I'm like right on it. And I
Yeah.
like Cal Newport. Like I started listening to I think it's him who has a little podcast around deep questions. So
Mm.
I want to really, really love this, and I want to really, make it part of my life. And man, if I can't even get through the book, that's problematic.
We
All
are
right,
not a
so,
very good book review.
whew, man, like I think the book is probably really, really good. I just maybe. So I have to say, I took a note. I took a note.
A note.
A
One
Okay.
note.
note.
And it said something about on-demand distraction, right? Like how we live our lives, like in this on-demand distraction, which is clearly how I live my life now. Like I think about that, and it is so true. And then right after that, he said, the folks, who live that way are mental wrecks. And I'm like, I clearly am a mental wreck. Like I am like, yes. So I really want to figure out how to not be that way. So can you tell me what the rest of the book was about, Amy, so I can figure out what to do?
No, and I guess the one thing I would say, and this is something that I actually wrote down, because you were talking about like, oh, he says this, and then he says this, and then how there's all this different stuff. But the one thing he does mention, it says you need your own philosophy for integrating deep work into your professional life. And I think that's like big. Yeah, I think that's true. I think you need to figure out what works for you. I think so. I'm not going to go through a whole dissertation on the book because that's boring and we don't want to be boring. But like, I think for me, when I read this book, the first time I read it was in 2022, I think. And I was just trying to figure out how to balance a whole bunch of stuff.
Mm.
Um, I was trying to figure out how to balance like my nutrition company, work, dogs, dog training, my training, like trying to figure everything out. So I think one of the biggest things that came out of this book for me, and again, this is just my personal thing, was like the whole like time blocking or like doing chunks of work. And Michelle is very familiar with this because um and I was guilty, and I have to like fully admit I really wanted to read this book again because I'm not in a good place right now and being super diligent about this. Um but I really truly got to a place where like literally like I'll generally start work about 8, and from like 8 to noon I would literally plug my phone in somewhere on the other side of the office and didn't touch it. And if anybody from work is listening to this, they're probably like, well, what a slacker. But that
Mm-mm.
was my time to really get things done. And I know that I just know me. And this is where I think everybody has to figure out what works best for them. I think much better. I'm much more focused, much more attention to detail in the morning. You guys know by the time I get to the this time of day, I'm like, I'm done. So I think that was one of the big things, and just like chunking stuff and then not like picking up your phone all the time or like having all the alerts on my phone. Like the people that have the alerts on their phones all the time, I'm
Right.
like,
Oh my gosh.
I can't even stand to be around them. I'm like, shut that off.
I know. I have to say that I totally like now that you explain that, that all makes so much sense to me because like this whole idea of the minute you pick up your phone and there's an email that demands your attention, you've now lost focus on whatever project you were working on. And
Mm-hmm.
so like I do have my text message alerts on, but I don't have email alerts on. I try to, and this might be just organic for me, that I just try to check email at certain times
Mm,
and not be constantly interrupted because I can't focus that way. Like it
yeah.
truly is
That
like look a squirrel.
that was that was one of the things that was recommended in the book, right? Was instead of um I'm going to mess this up. Maybe Amy, you can remember and phrase it differently, but instead of trying to fit in the deep work to schedule like when you check your email,
Mm,
right? So
mm-hmm.
instead of like emails the thing and you're trying to work around that, you schedule like, okay, I'm going to check email from 9 to 9:30 in the morning, let's say, and then 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And like, that's it. Um, I really liked it. There's so many things like I really, was sitting there going, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Do that. And realizing that that is not how I have operated for the majority of my career. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and at least now I know I'm aware that multitasking is not a good thing for my brain or my health or my longevity or my
Or
work,
work.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or my work. But when I was in sort of, those prime working years, and even now, I was around so many people and so many folks that was like a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you could be standing there doing email, listening to something, eating your lunch, and driving, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
because I think I ate more meals in my car in those years than I ate at home. So you're driving, you're talking on the phone, hands-free, of course, if anybody's listening. Make sure
Just
it's
in case.
always hands-free.
Safety first.
Yes, safety first. You know, so all those things and not and thinking that was good, right?
Mhm.
Like thinking, look at how productive I am. I did, you know.
Yeah, well, we used to call it multitasking as if it were like this really good skill to have.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everybody wanted to be able to multitask. And like women are naturally better at multitasking. They've done studies that show that, but it's because, you know, just in terms of the sexes, you know, we're the ones that typically, you know, are doing multiple things at one time, being, you know, in the old days, primarily the people that made dinner and gathered the food and took care of the kids. And the man was more focused on, like, you know, killing the elk or whatever for dinner.
But
Yeah.
because so Lara, I'm curious, in wherever you saw that, is it that we maybe I don't even know what that means to be better at it, like we can just do more things at one time,
Well,
but
that's a good
And not
point. Like,
complain
is
about
it
it.
really better?
is it
Like,
better
is
Yeah.
it
for us,
better?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and is
exactly.
the
Mhm.
quality of that work or care, is it just because you can doesn't mean you
You
should,
should.
right?
Right. Yes, and I totally agree. Like, I think about, like, even like 20 years ago, like you said, it was much more of a thing to, or a badge of honor, or
Mhm.
you know, you were, you know,
Well,
kind of
look at
looked
the
upon as
ads, right?
successful.
So she can go out and bring home the
Bring home the
bacon and
bacon
cook it
and
up in a pan and, you know, never let you forget you're a man. Like,
I know,
what
like
the
that's three things in one.
right? Like, if not more, depending
Yeah.
on your situation. But I'm
That's
like,
right.
what? You know, that was like the advertising that was targeting us at that time.
That's
Like,
right. And if you guys listening are too young to know, look up the commercial, bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan and whatever, because I don't even remember what that was for, but
was
it
it
was an
for
ad that was on TV. Hair,
perfume? Was it Charlie?
perfume. Oh,
Perfume?
yeah, it might have been
I
perfume.
don't know. I get confused because I'm old
Somebody's
now.
going to
But
have to look that up and tell us.
yeah,
Like,
well,
somebody
yeah.
email us
Yeah.
or put it on social media,
Which ad
because
was that?
maybe
But
we
what?
could find it and share it, because that was so detrimental to our mental health.
And of course,
Thanks.
it was beautiful and had the. I'm sure whoever was in the ad was stunningly gorgeous, and
Yeah.
And was
you
wearing
know,
like 4-inch
Perfect.
heels in her
right with
business
a
suit
business suit. Yeah,
and had her big frying pan with her bacon, and then her hot husband came walking through the door and she's like
I'm sure she had
perfect.
kids too. Yeah, I.
It was like the modern version of like the 50s housewife, where, you know,
Mm-hmm.
she came home and she was all made up and cute dressed and
Met him
had
at the
dinner on
door
the
with the
table.
martini. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, honey. I'm gonna.
So really it's not changed all that much.
No. Only now you have to go to work too and
Yeah.
be there with
Yeah.
the martini when you get home. Like, yeah, a little
Yeah.
insane.
That's so funny.
It's starting to head the
So,
right way, at least. Like, we are starting to understand that it's more important to focus.
Mm.
And mindfulness, I think, is a huge part of focus. And so, like, there's so much buzz now about being mindful and
Mm.
doing mindfulness practices. And so, I mean, I kind of feel like we're starting to get past all that old
And I did
yeah.
habits.
think about that reading this book. I'm like, all right, he's a guy, right? Men, right? Like, no offense to all the wonderful men listening, but
Billy.
yeah,
No
but
offense to my husband.
husband.
No.
But I think that this idea of focus and deep work, like if you even think of the examples that he gives in the book, I don't recall any women.
That's
Do you
interesting.
Mm.
remember? Like, it was like men scientists and yeah, I don't recall any, and I didn't get through the whole book, so and you know
It's in
maybe
the later chapters. No.
now I'm gonna have to go look. But whenever I read these things or listen to these things that are about this, I rarely are women the ones that are getting to do like this deep work stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think so? It sounds like maybe you're saying like men, society already gives men more credit and more opportunity to focus on one task and do that deep work.
Yeah, and then they get to come home and their little wife meets them at the door with their martini and makes their dinner, and
Oh,
they
that
don't
is
have to
definitely
worry
not
about,
happening in
well, I
this
mean, not
household.
in your
Not
house,
anymore.
but,
I can
you
assure
know,
you.
like
There's
that.
some young guys listening to this going, dang, I was
How does
born way too
that
late.
happen? Right. But I think that's, when you think that, and that's good. I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, I think there might be something in there. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. I didn't think of it that way, but now that you're mentioning that, I think that's true. Not that there haven't been women that have gone on and done great things,
Yeah.
but the success stories that maybe a man is relating to are more, male based. And
What?
just like if a woman wrote that book,
Okay.
she would talk more about the
Yeah.
struggle and the challenges that women face that are unique to women.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
think of
I
the
might be,
Thrive book.
yeah, yeah.
I can't think of her name now.
Ariana
Yeah,
Huffington? And
yes.
yes.
Yep.
Oh,
And I
Ariana
Yeah.
have
Huffington.
to say, I don't remember if it was this book or another book because I may be, boy, I am getting really bad. There was some conversation, and maybe it was this book, and they were talking about women and an author. Was it a different book? I don't know. I get so confused now. And how they would have to find like these little pieces of, I think it was this book. Okay, so I may be
I
full
think
of
so.
shit, you guys. I think maybe he did talk
Beep.
about women in the beginning. Sorry,
Yeah.
no swear. In the do you remember that, Amy,
I'm
at
gonna
all?
have to put the
Oh,
explicit mark on
oh yeah,
now.
because I said a bad word. But just talking about authors, some of the authors like, Virginia Woolf and A Room of One's Own, but just how way back in the day, how challenging it was for deep work, but not impossible, right? Like,
Yeah, look at
yeah,
who was Marie Curie. She's a great
yep,
example. Like that
Mhm.
was, way before women did any of that kind of
yeah,
work.
yeah. All right, so
So,
now I think I might have misspoke. So sorry, you guys. I think that might have been the whole first part. I listened to it on a walk, and I'm like, was that book or was it a different book?
So, I guess two things I would say on the whole multitasking thing. And yeah, we like definitely it used to be this is gonna sound really bad. It used to be like a badge of honor, and now I just find it freaking annoying. Like
Mm.
like
yep.
really annoying. Like if I'm around somebody who's trying to do that, I'm like, for the love of God, would you stop and focus for a minute? Um
I'm
Put
the
your phone
same.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, so like the one thing I found this quote a while back that said multitasking is the ability to screw up more than one thing at a time. And it basically
Yeah.
um is it. And then the other thing I was gonna do talking about multitasking, and I actually did this in a mindset course with my running coach last year, I think it was. But they had us do, and for those of you who are listening, you can do this at home or wherever you are, not with your driving. But so you start out and you write the alphabet. So write
Are we
down, and
gonna do
Michelle,
it?
if you want to, go ahead.
Okay.
So you
So,
write
okay, we're writing
the
the
alphabet.
alphabet.
Yeah, and so you're gonna
Do you remember talking about this, Michelle?
I do.
yeah.
Okay.
So the whole thing is you'll have to time yourself, and we're not gonna we
Oh,
won't leave
Oh,
like
okay,
well,
okay.
here I am. Right. Okay. Never
blank.
mind.
Yeah, I
Yep.
was gonna say we won't leave all the blank space on the podcast while we wait for you
Okay.
guys to time. But
We could play Jeopardy music.
yeah, dude. Oh yeah, we could do that. I don't know if I'm talented enough to edit it that way. You are. I am working on some podcast skills. Um, but so basically, you time yourself and you write the alphabet and say how do how
How
long
long
it
it
takes to write that, and then you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 26, and you see how long it takes to write that. Then the next round you do A1, B2, C3 through the whole, so you get to Z and 26. and see how long. And the whole point, like, I think mine was way more than double. I don't
Huh.
remember the exact times, but the whole point is, like, as you're switching your brain from one task to a next and one task to the next, like, your brain has to refocus. And so you're so much slower when you'd be better off just to focus on one thing, get it done, then focus on the next thing and
Yeah.
get it done. So
Well, that's
it's kind of a cool thing.
interesting. I mean, just thinking about that, like writing A1, B2, C3, D4, like that part it's easy, but then you have to go back and you know how in your head you go A, B, C, D,
See
E, F.
the
So it's like you have to stop halfway through. Yeah, I can totally see how that would not
Yeah.
work for me.
Yeah.
Right?
What letters next?
Hmm.
But anyway, yeah, that was just a cool little thing that we did during that class, which I thought
What
was
was the class
fun.
that again?
It was just a mindset course that
mindset course.
yeah.
That's so cool though.
So, but anyway, yeah, that's my take on all of
Well,
that.
okay, so how different do you think deep work is from just pure focus? Like, is it this one and the same? Or is it like a deeper focus? Like, because all of us probably work on being focused at certain times or need to be focused at certain times. So, like, is it the same thing?
I mean, I don't know the true definition. I'll give my opinion.
Hmm.
That's what
I
we
think
always expect.
it's probably wrong. So like to me, I tend to think of deep work being more like on the creative side, like coming up with new
Oh,
ideas, or like if you're a business owner or you're trying to write a paper or you're trying to write a book. Like I tend to think of deep work as more creating, whereas focus, you're just focused on a task to get something done.
got it.
But I could be totally
So,
wrong.
like, calculating sales tax for a small business owner, that's a task. Like,
Yeah.
it's not
I would
creative. You
yeah,
just
I
have
would
to
call
get
that
it done.
like you need to be
Yeah,
focused and probably
focused.
not checking Facebook while you're doing that.
Yeah, and like it's super easy to want to check Facebook because it sucks and you
Yeah.
don't want to do it and you put it off as long as you can and then the minute you have an opportunity to do something else you're like, "Oh, let's not do this right now."
Yeah.
But I get that. Like that's focus. Like you have to focus and it's just a task. But like creativity, like for example, again, like and coming from me owning a small business where I'm constantly struggling to create content that like gets people's attention and tries to get them in the
Mhm.
door, I do try to chunk that out in time frames to where I'll create something. But I also find that in between, like anything that's scheduled or planned, I will get these like little creative like spurts. And then I have to leave room for those times because a lot of times those like organic posts do way
Or
better than
better.
the
Yeah.
planned ones
I
for
would agree.
whatever
Yeah.
better actually is because who knows with the algorithm, nobody really knows. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
saw an ad the other day for some marketing, person that was trying to help you do better. And it was basically like social media is not an advertising strategy. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh
Yep.
crap, really? That
Are
sucks
you sure?
because it's
Yeah.
free. I mean, you can pay for it, but it's also free.
Yeah.
Darn.
Oh yeah, that could be a whole other topic because I'm in
Right.
that doing that like
Yeah. So I think
monthly
like
class or
deep
weekly
work
class.
can be difficult if it's creative based because scheduling time to be creative is tough.
Mhm.
And for me it is. Maybe it's not for everybody, but like some days I'm not in a creative space. Like it has to be the right day, I have to be in the right frame of mind. Sometimes I'll wake up with creative ideas and I'll like take notes and then later I'll go back and be like, yeah, that's dumb.
So so really interesting. So it's so funny. I think of myself as a writer that doesn't write, you know? But as a writer that doesn't write and but pays attention to that stuff, one of the things, and I feel like, again, reading too many books, I can't remember where things come from anymore. And it may have been from this book, but one of the things that often gets said about creativity is that as a writer or a creator, if you're waiting for inspiration,
Mm.
you're screwed. Like
Mhm.
you're just screwed. So the idea behind deep work, at least the portion of the book that I actually read, and can remember came from deep work. One of the things that he talked about is to pick fewer goals. Like if your goal is to write a novel or your whatever that is, that if you focus on fewer goals, like a specific important goal, and you set aside time, it's in your it's a planned time, right? So it's a scheduled time and you're showing up for that. Another thing, don't let me forget. You're showing up for that no matter what. And so to wait around for the creative, inspiration is great if you have that kind of, if you aren't needing it to do something, like if you aren't like if you have to create content and you have to create content no matter what, like you're better off scheduling a time for it, and then cool, right? And if
Yeah,
something
and some of
good,
it will be good and some of it won't,
yeah,
but at least
Yeah.
you're doing.
yeah.
So
As
he
far
talked
as
about that
getting
with
things done, yes, I totally agree with that. Because if you don't schedule the time and you don't block it out and actually do it during the time you planned it, it's like you won't get it done.
Yeah.
It'll go by the wayside. You'll be scrambling later, and then it's never going to be as good as it
So
was when it
what
was
I
planned.
wanted to remember to tell you guys about that, which was so cool. Do you guys remember Liz Gilbert? She wrote Eat, Pray,
Pray
Love.
Love.
Yeah, a
Oh gosh, for a
bazillion.
second I was thinking I was going to Little House on the Prairie.
No, 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 no.
I'm like,
Liz
yeah.
Gilbert. And I heard her speak
That sounds funny.
at a little conference I went to, and she talked about how in order it was probably right about the time she wrote Big Magic, which was all about creativity and how to inspire that. But she said something, and I'm totally screwing this up. So Liz Gilbert, if you ever listen to our podcast, so
I'm
sorry.
sure
Love
she
you.
is. We're like,
Love you. Hopefully I won't get
Love
this
you.
wrong. But she said something about how important it is to set aside the time to respect the muse, right? Like, because when the muse shows up, like they want to know that there's, time set aside for them to, interact with you or to have the great idea, or, that her concept was that there are ideas out there looking for you. And if you're not ready for them, they kind of just go on to the next person who is ready for that idea. So
So
I just
it's
thought it was just such a different way of thinking about it. Like that ideas are kind of floating around, just waiting for a human, and they like pop in. And if you're not ready, they pop out and go to the next person. So,
So
yeah.
it's like you have to be receptive, and if you set aside
Yes.
that time for receptivity, you're
Yeah.
going to receive what you're
Yep.
seeking.
You'll get something.
It's kind of
It
like
may not be what,
manifestation, a little bit more, a
yes.
little like manifestation.
Yeah. So anyway, again, Liz Gilbert, hopefully I didn't get that completely wrong, but it was really a cool
And
a
is she
cool
related
way.
to Melissa Gilbert or no?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, just curious.
She's
Kind of
doing okay, so shiny object squirrel. She
shocker. We talked about deep work and
um,
focus. And we're like,
she's doing right. Don't Here's an example of what not to do.
yeah,
Um,
right.
she
remember,
is
Michelle didn't read the book. No.
I read part of the book. But Liz Gilbert is doing conference? No, I'm trying to think. Some sort of
Like a workshop.
Sounds
workshop.
like.
Woo, sounds like workshop with
Two
the
words.
Modern Elder Academy, which Chip Conley has. He's the one who heads that up. So anyway, that is super interesting. That whole Modern Elder Academy thing. So maybe a
Modern
conversation for another.
elder. Yeah,
Yep,
that's
MEA,
interesting. Maybe
Modern
something to
Elder
look up
Academy.
for another
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So shiny object, very shiny, not related to deep work. Moving on.
Yeah. So
the
we
one
are
thing that
staying focused on the podcast topic, but we also sometimes go off on little tangents.
Yeah,
So
we're not
maybe it's
focused.
not deep work, but we
You
are
see if I
committing
had a
to
problem.
this
It's
50
fun work.
minutes.
It's fun work. Um he
No.
talked about, so when you were talking about the whole, like, just not waiting for inspiration, like you just got to sit down and,
Yep.
since Michelle already cussed on here, I might as well too. You just sit down and get the shit done. Like, um, so he talked about Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld. Like one of the guys went up to him and was like, "Hey, like, how do you have all these jokes?" And he's like, "Well, how do you write a good joke? You write like basically a lot of them." And I'm probably screwing up the story now too. So
You write
Jerry
a lot of
Seinfeld,
bad
if you're
jokes.
listening, yeah, like you write it, like you just write them, and eventually some good ones come out of it. But he talked about like having a calendar, and every day that he wrote a joke, you just
Oh, I
like,
remember this.
yeah,
Yeah.
see, it's all coming back to me now. Like you cross off the day on the calendar, and eventually, like, it's kind of this little reward system. You know, you just kind of check off stuff as you go, and eventually something good will come out of it. But
Get the little
yeah, if
hit.
you just
Yeah.
sit around and wait for inspiration to have some amazing joke, you might be waiting for a little while. So
Well,
yeah.
it is interesting. I mean, and I do agree with the time blocking. I think that can really help. I felt like in the beginning of the book, he sounded so rigid to me. And I was like, I'm just not a rigid person, no matter how you slice it. So even though I do try to focus and I get things done, I've always been able to get things done, but not always traditional, like the route that traditional people might take. Like focusing for like, okay, from 8 to 10, I'm doing this, and from 10 to 11, I'm doing that. But loosely speaking, the focus is there. Otherwise, I wouldn't, have opened up a business at all. I got a business plan done even earlier than I planned, at least. But I feel like I like the idea of working on getting deeper. So the deep work itself. Okay, now I sound like a politician. Not to get political. But I do kind of feel like the loose structure for deep work is what he's talking about. Like you don't have to maybe follow it to a T. And that's what Michelle was alluding to earlier, is like everybody's a little bit different. You have to work with your personality or your human design or your astrology chart, who knows what else. But in the end, like you're going to have to do that work. You're going to have to deeply focus to be successful or to get what you want out of whatever project you're working
What
on.
it is you're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not very eloquent.
I thought that was perfectly eloquent. I thought that was perfect. The other piece that he had started to get into, I guess now I'm going to have to go listen to the rest of the book.
I know, now I'm going to have to read more of it.
Oh my goodness. He was talking about the need for collaboration as well.
I thought of you when I read that because we've talked about that before.
Yeah. And so I thought that was, maybe it's just the way the material was presented that was sort of hard for me to mentally wrap my head. I don't know. Like once he would get to I'm like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. But it took us like 20 minutes to get there. I'm like, good God. Just the idea of, he was talking about the offices being like soundproof, but yet so that because the professors didn't want to hear any of the like, whatever was going on out there in the open floor space or whatever. However, it was set up so they had to walk past other people and other offices and other departments to get to like the cafeteria or whatever. And that was where they would have more collaboration, and how important that was to the creative process. So I thought that, I was like, okay, because creating, and I'm thinking about real creatives and science, like I am not sciencey. I'm in awe of people who like actually, oh, we're gonna, discover something that never existed before. Like I don't even know like what brain, like how that works,
Like
because my
quantum
brain is
physics?
right. Like how, what? And I think that's what he was really talking about. And I'm like, I don't even have that, like that. I don't know. Anyway, so the idea of how you do that, like how you create something really brand new out of nothing. Like, it's so foreign to me. I'm like, how in the world would you do that alone anyway? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that it's like the idea of brainstorming if you think about it. Like when you
Mhm.
get people in a room brainstorming, yeah, a lot of the stuff that gets thrown, it's like they say throw it up against the wall and
Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
sticks.
See what sticks, yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, like if you think about like anytime I've ever brainstormed, I feel like there's always good that comes out of that. Like there's always like one great idea. Like even if there were 25 stupid ones, there's always one and then everybody's like, oh, "Yeah, like that's it." And I think yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is even if they were like focused on their work in their soundproof room, but at some point they had to get some input. They had to get some collaboration, maybe share their thoughts and hear other people's views. And also if you think about it, how many times has science been wrong? Like a
Hmm.
lot. So like what maybe was somebody's took
Yep.
this for real like 45 years ago, and now somebody's new view has changed everything. So without that collaboration, we'd never grow, we'd never
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. So I love that. One of the things boy, shiny object squirrel, let me tell you. One of the things
I'm not
this
doing a
is
very good job.
We're still talking about focus.
yes, we are. But science, especially, I always find it really interesting how people want science is meant to evolve, like nothing,
Mhm.
and how
We can
and
find
I
out new
am
stuff.
right, and I kind of get it because I'm a certainty seeker. Like I'm like, in order to be safe, I want to be certain, and there is no certainty, right? And like and science and the world is constantly evolving, and you know, um, everything changes, and it's always so interesting to me when people are like, "Well, they said back in 1950 that blah 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 blah." Blah." Well, clearly we've learned a lot since then, and we know new things. Yeah, so that's another another great topic, like how in a world that is just uncertain all the time, like you can't know, right?
Mhm.
You
And it's
don't
getting more
know.
uncertain like every time.
Every
Like,
minute,
yeah,
right?
every time you see one of those NASA telescope things or you
Ah,
hear like
no shit.
there's something I just heard recently about what they used to call dark matter, which was like the absence of matter, but now they're saying no, there's stuff there. There's actual stuff there, and it's the building blocks of like everything. It's in, it's out, it's you, it's them, it's everywhere. I'm like,
Right?
what? Like I
Oh my
literally
gosh.
was listening to it as like an NPR podcast and I could not wrap my brain around it. I was
Mind
like, this
bending.
is
Like,
what? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's the
I
stuff there where there is no stuff kind of
right.
thing. Like, what?
What? Wait, who? So it's just, how did we get here? Okay, focus.
I think you led us down this path. You
I just
Science.
yeah.
science, yeah. So, yeah, interesting. And so even the science of like deep work, right? So we've even so the world culturally has changed from multitasking is awesome and everybody should do it to, oh man, that is screwing up your brain. We all
That's
need to be
true.
doing one thing at a time,
Well, that is a good point. Like that has changed tremendously. Like it's not really looked upon as a valuable thing to do anymore.
I don't
Right.
know. I still think a lot of people think that
That's the way to do it.
it is. Yeah.
Certainly.
Like I've
I'll be
certainly
honest,
changed.
I have a hard time letting go of that idea that it's valuable, that I should like because I've always said like, oh, I'm such a good multitasker. Like it was my badge of honor,
Mhm.
and I would
Yeah.
say like I get a lot done, and I'm proud of that, and but now I do see like where maybe it wasn't my best work.
Mm.
Right. And the difference between getting a lot done, like checking lots of boxes, and actually
Mm.
doing work that matters.
Yeah.
Like you can check lots of
Yes.
boxes.
Quality over quantity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really have been trying to, you know, dig into that a little more because I spent most of my career like just doing lots of stuff. Like I did a lot of stuff every day and not and as I look back over it, I'm like, wow, I wonder how much more. Mm. So I'm in sales, right? I wonder how much more I could have sold if I had focused more instead of doing lots of things and
Yeah.
said, no, I'm not, I'm only going to focus on these five accounts or something. Um, what would the numbers have looked like as opposed to doing lots of things for lots of people, but never really like, okay, sorry, because that means ditching. So I think that's a female
Mm,
thing too. That means I'm gonna have to like not do things for all you other people, right? And
Yeah.
you're gonna be mad at me because I'm not doing things for you. So I don't know. I really do wonder about that too.
Well,
Like,
I know exactly what you're saying because I mean, we all three of us came from a sales background, but my first real sales job was in publication. It was a publication, so it was advertising sales, and we were required we had these physical books that we were given, and we were required to
did you
call
read it?
30. Oh no, it wasn't a reading book.
Oh.
It was a writing book.
Oh.
We called it the
I was
Red
like, did
Book.
you read that
If
one?
there's any of my old colleagues from many moons ago from Thoroughbred Times, they'll know exactly what the Red Book is. We had a big box of index cards, and those were our lead cards. And then we had our big red book, and it was like a big book, like 9 by 11, or no, that's the normal size. It was the big size of paper, legal size, and it had lines in it. And you literally had to, before you could leave for the day. And I mean, they weren't checking this. This was just something everybody just had to do. And at some point, if you didn't have it done, bye bye. But we had to have
like check
30
minus.
calls a day. Now, granted, we are also outside salespeople, but the owner's theory was quantity,
Mm,
like 10%, or it was like 20%. It was like the 80-20 rule, which is a very well held principle in sales. But like out of, 100 calls, 80 of them are going to be no's and 20 of them might turn into clients. So his theory was the more you called, and they came up with this magic number of 30. I don't know where they came up with that. And you had to, not only that, but you had to have them written down before you left. So the next day they were all ready. And then you had to there were little symbols, like there was checks or there was call back or left a message, and then you had to move them to the next day if you didn't reach them. So essentially you're supposed to be calling these people every single day. This is back before email was a really big thing. And I just remember thinking, how many messages am I going to leave on this dude's voicemail before he blocks me or puts a restraining order out?
restraining order.
But I was also thinking, at some point, you're just scrambling to put random clients and
Right?
names. You're not doing quality work. And that was
No.
the truth. And
Yeah.
it's like, you would be much better off spending, an hour going to visit someone, which back then was a thing too, going to
Yeah.
the farm and visiting that farm and talking to the owner, taking them to lunch, and doing that for 4 people a day, than doing, we can't take 4 people to lunch separately, but you know what I mean.
Well,
That's
breakfast,
a
lunch,
whole
It
dinner,
was
and
nutrition
just,
issue.
cocktails.
the whole theory to me, I never understood it. I always thought it was bunk.
Mm.
So anyways, and I did okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Well, this has been interesting.
it wasn't probably quite what we thought it might be.
No, but I mean, are they ever?
No.
No,
Which is good.
not
I
very
feel like we
rarely.
definitely kind of.
Well, especially with I think a subject like focus is very unique and personal. Everybody's
Mhm.
focus levels are different. Everybody's ability to do the deep work or the style to do their deep work is different because we're all unique. So I think
Yeah.
that's another reason why it's just it's a really interesting topic though.
Yeah.
Good job, Amy.
Yeah. You guys hated it.
No, I like the topic.
I gotta tell you, this is gonna sound wonky, but I really have found myself and I'm going to use this word intentionally, I have found myself yearning for space to do deep work, and it
Mm.
seems so elusive to me. Like on the days I'm like, nope, I'm gonna something invariably just sends it sideways. But I really feel like that is something I want in my life much more than I have now. And it
Hmm.
seems so elusive. Like I just between, between the work culture that I created, right? Like I'm responsible for kind of what has happened. And so trying to um change that after years and other people's expectations, right? Um is really like I thought this was I think this is a really good topic, and I really think um yeah, I didn't hate it. It just is hard. And I think it's hard because it's hard for me. I think that's part of it, right? So it's a really easy way to not have to deal with it if you can just fall asleep. I'm just falling asleep. I'm like, okay,
That's a
Well,
defense mechanism.
yeah, I'm good at that.
I mean, that everything you just said really resonates. Like trying, wanting that space and desiring that space to do deep work. I think I can think of a lot of people who are feeling that. I feel that too. I mean, it kind of makes me want to go back and read the book, to be honest. Like, really read it
Me too.
because I
I want
feel
to
like,
finish it.
yes, if I could gain that or gain at least a slight ability to achieve some deep work, I mean, that's a big deal.
It seems delicious. Like he talks about these
Delicious?
I love that.
delicious. Like it just seems like
You're yearning for
I'm here.
delicious.
I get
No.
like real words here.
I'm
Like
excited to read this book now. Dang it.
he's he talks about some of these authors, and I guess because I'm a writer that doesn't write, right? And I always feel like if I could just have this space to, and he talks about these authors who just go and they have these little cabins, right? And they just go
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah.
lock themselves off, and people just ring the dinner bell when it's time to eat. I want one of those.
So, Michelle, I'm going
Yeah,
to play you and just push back on that just a skosh.
you do that.
Because
Push
Love
back.
it.
you've said multiple times now that you're a writer that doesn't write, but
Mm.
might make you feel super uncomfortable on here. But I
Oh, I
think
hate when
Oh.
you do that to me.
that, but I'm just going to push you out of your comfort zone a little bit because that's what I'm good at. I think
It's Amy's superpower.
you have sent Lara and I several
Mm.
very well written things.
Agreed. You have.
Mm-hmm.
Very well written.
So, yes, I'm just gonna put that out there, and if anybody wants to push Michelle to write a little bit more,
Blog time.
yeah,
Like, put
because
Yeah.
that
she's
out
very good
there.
at it, and she is a writer that does write. She just doesn't give herself credit for
Don't
writing.
publish, right? I'm a writer that doesn't
There you
publish.
go. A writer that doesn't
Yeah.
publish. You are a
Yeah.
Yeah.
writer.
Well,
So
thank
yeah,
you.
I'm just gonna throw that out there as a little like dink, dink, dink.
All right, Amy. Anybody
She's
who's
gonna,
looking for a really good coach, like a good fitness and nutrition coach, call Amy.
I
Bit by
will
bit
push you
nutrition.
out of your
She will-
comfort zone.
Yeah, or if you need a writing coach, she can help you with that too.
yeah.
Me? This girl cannot
Push you
write.
to write.
She can help you find the time to push you out
Yeah.
of your comfort
Get your
zone to
deep
write.
work done. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm
Back
just
to
good at
deep work.
pushing
See,
people.
we got back to our topic. She can help you find your time for
We
your deep work.
circled back a little
Yep.
bit.
Yeah.
I honestly
Yeah.
do not know how we just spent
A really long time.
almost 50
50
minutes
minutes.
talking
Yeah.
about that. It did not feel like it was that long.
And you guys didn't even want to read it.
And we weren't even like that excited about it. Okay, I think we've convinced ourselves that this is a good book and we need to read it, but the topic is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do put on our calendar either in 2025 or somewhere along
Wow.
the route
A
in
little
here.
redo.
Yeah. Well, not a redo, but I'd like to really try. Like, I know, Amy, you've actually executed and implemented like blocks. So you have really done it and have
Yeah,
got
and again, full
results.
confession, I am in a really bad space with doing it now, and I know that I really need to get back to it. So that's why I was super
Well,
excited
I'd
about
be super
doing.
curious to hear when we talk about this again, because I think we should.
Yeah.
What knocked you off track, right?
Mm,
Like what,
Mm-hmm.
because you were doing really good, like
mm-hmm.
really good. And so I'd be curious to hear what knocked you off. And then I really want to try and implement some of this stuff and see. So maybe I'll finish the book. And
That should be your first block of
yeah,
time.
that's
Set
it.
aside a block of time to read 10
Yes.
pages.
Yeah, without,
Interruption.
interruption, right? Without,
Well,
and
the
then
way I
Lara,
look at it, we do it with this podcast. We set aside about an hour and we usually get the podcast done within the hour. I'm almost not every week, but several times a month, and we do it and we turn our phones off, and every now and then we get a little interruption, but I feel like we kind of already have the ability to do it.
Mm.
Is
We
it
just need to
so where
collaborate
is
while we
the
do it, maybe.
disconnect? Uh-oh, cat. There's a cat here.
Oh no.
I'm just
Excellent.
There's a cat taking your
fair
microphone.
warning, there's a cat on the desk.
Speaking of interruptions,
Speaking
Things
of,
happen.
you're
Ding,
supposed to
ding,
lock your
ding.
cat out of the room when you're doing podcasts.
So
That they make
I
more
think
noise.
we should revisit this topic, sort of
I
like
think
a
maybe we
post.
should.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we should.
so like maybe after the first of the year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good time to like,
yeah,
Not only
you know,
read it, but
people-
put it into practice and then
Yeah.
notice.
yeah.
yeah.
And what happened, and yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Okay,
gonna
I'm
make
in.
ourselves an
Okay, I'm
experiment.
in.
I'm in.
Michelle, you're
Oh,
so funny. Okay, I'm in.
I'm in.
All those in say aye.
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 Okay.
Those opposed, say nay. No.
There's no opposition.
Oh,
Well,
good
that-
topic. That was a good topic.
This definitely didn't go quite how that,
Yeah.
but
Meh. What does? What does?
What does? Along with deep focus, you must have flexibility.
Yes.
we are nothing if not flexible.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well,
How are
I
we signing
guess-
off?
yeah.
know.
I think, I don't know, we should do the classic.
I
Let's
got some
try it.
feedback on that, and somebody said we should really stop trying, and we should just all get together somewhere together and record it.
Record it once. Was that
Yeah.
Billy by any chance who gave you that?
No, it
feedback?
was not. It was not.
Oh.
Ugh.
It was another list.
Maybe we should put a poll up on social media
Oh yeah.
for our 25 followers.
Well, so I actually do. I pulled clips out of us doing it on multiple occasions. So maybe we need to post those and then
And then see if we
Somebody
need to
pick one.
do
Yeah.
a live one where we're
no,
all
I
three
do
together.
I do think a live because that will just be a really good excuse for all of us to get together. in
I
person.
know, we do need to get together. It's been too long. You guys see each other all the time.
Yeah.
Well, not all the time, but
Yeah.
More than
But
me.
just
more
last
often
week.
than we get to see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, I guess we'll sign off for now in the classic way, and just those who
Yeah,
don't
'cause
like it,
I think
sorry.
Yeah, too bad. I think Lara got feedback that we
Right.
needed to do that because
You
we
guys
tried to
ready?
do
I did have
something
one
different.
person that liked it, yeah. Okay, so
Okay,
we'll work.
good. So,
Okay,
all right.
Okay, so we're gonna
countdown.
do the fast one or the slow one
Let's do the fast one.
because I think like that's the like
Fast works.
the hold up.
Fast. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's
So
do
like
fast.
monkey chatter.
Chatter.
Ooh, hang with Matt.
Matters.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Monkey
Monkey
chatter,
chatter,
monkey
monkey
chatter.
chatter.
Who you hang with matters. I don't know.
I think Michelle's internet is just delayed a little bit.
It might be fine on their actual recording.
Okay.
No, it usually is not.
Well, we'll see. That one
Thanks
felt
for
better.
listening. We love you guys.
Bye.
All right, see you later. Not everybody's listening to this at night.